Hi, Assalamu alaikum.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum, Fayaz. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for joining me today and for being one of the closest one to me and my family in last few weeks. And give people some like little background. I didn't know Hana, I think 5 weeks back, and I was in an extremely difficult situation. And I just thought about reaching out to some people in the community and whatnot, just taking a chance. I didn't have much hope. So I posted in a Facebook group, to be honest. And Hana kind of like came along and he helped me. She gave me courage. She gave me so many leads and so many ways. Like all of a sudden, from a very dark place, I was kind of thinking like, hey, yeah, it's just like any other problem. Like it's not the end of the world. There is help around. And fortunately, I came around. So, Anna, personally, thank you so much again for that. And also, it's a great honor to like talk about helping people in my second episode of this podcast because if I now think about helping people, you were probably one of the first three people that come to my mind. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, and glad we connected. It's funny that you mentioned about the Facebook community because I usually do not go to Facebook too much, too often, but your post just caught my eye, and it was something that resonated with me that I could not just take my mind off. And it was you who reached out, who approached. And when you approached, I could understand that this is what our community is. This is what I was needing few years ago. Because of my life experience, I understood your situation and resonated with it. And I'm so glad that you reached out because it's so tough to take that first step that you took. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. So I want to ask you first about where does it come from for you to help people? Because the cliches we all have, like truth, helping others, then being honest, things like that. Like we know all these things, but in my experience, these are the most difficult things to practice. So what do you draw the inspiration for? Like I really remember you took out a couple of hours without knowing me, without doing anything. We didn't have a background or anything like that, but you really took the time. So where do you find that amazing energy?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned it because noticing that thing is also a quality a lot of time, and that's something you have, and we resonate on empathy. Where it comes from is based on my life experiences, based on my career. I have experienced layoff, I've experienced career transition, I've also experienced building authentic professional network. LinkedIn had been one of the biggest resources. When I was laid off, somebody unknown helped me out. But it also comes from the values, the family values that my parents have given, and that comes from my Islamic values too. Like give back generously to the community without expecting anything in return. And always remember to pay it forward. Like something my parents always say, pay it forward. Keep telling to community or whoever you help that you don't have to return any favor to me. I'm not doing it as a favor. Just keep moving forward, pay back to community and help them out so that it creates a chain of people helping each other. It just comes from the time that I had spent in this country, in US. I'd been here for 15 years now, and I had created network on my own but also struggled. When your post resonated with me, not just professionally but also in the personal life. Our personal feelings affect our personal environment as well as professional environment. The passion came with me because I needed that kind of help few years ago, and I could not reach out to people in my network because nobody understood. The fact that you posted on Facebook itself shows that nobody in your network is understanding. That's why you're reaching out to strangers. And a lot of time I myself have experienced that you can create safe space for others to be vulnerable and just find the amazing response from community. I, being the youngest kid in my family, never used to lean on to community, but always on the family. But coming from a background of engineer as a profession, but also a family of people in medicine, I didn't have any interaction or cross connection on these fields. And I had to do everything by myself and always struggle. But when it's the town time, that's when you know who's gonna help you out. Your post was something I was like, damn, this checks off all the boxes that I have experienced. And I really want to help this person. I don't know how I got that energy, but that in simple language, it just made me happy. I had the best peace of mind after prayers. This is the thing that always helped me get peace. I'm actually getting goosebumps while talking to because that's the true feeling. A lot of people say, how do you get it? And I was like, I don't know. I just feel happy. A lot of time people ask, why do you keep doing this? And I was like, I don't know. I needed it. I never felt understood within my friends and professional network. And I think I can lend that hand, put that elevator down to help another one and pull them up to that confidence level, come out of their imposter syndrome or any experiences that they have had. So that is me.
Wow. Yeah, so many good points there. I want to start with a very direct question. So, if I understood you correctly, would you say that helping others is one of the easiest way to become a happier person?
I'm glad that you mentioned because I feel helping others also help you not just to empower others but also empower yourself and overcome any grief that you may have had. Grief can be from any situation in life, either from loss of a job or an admit from a university or not even getting like buying a car, like, oh, that deal went off, or just buying something. But I feel that grief matters person to person and the intensity matters person to person. But somebody like me who has been through a lot early in their life, in their late 20s, early 30s, I feel empowering others helps in bringing peace and that brings happiness. Serving Ummah is something that has been taught in family and in our religion. Giving back to community, it gives peace of mind and peace of happiness. Like you helped somebody, you made somebody smile today.
Very true. You also mentioned your parents, and I'm also a huge advocate for that because along your life, when we grow up, I think it becomes more and more difficult to install these kind of beliefs and values. So, do you think since we are becoming the parents now, we are in their shoes, we need to inspire the next generation? It's primarily our duty, the duty of the parents to kind of install this. It's a difficult thing to understand, right? For a kid or a teenager, that how helping somebody else is going to help me eventually, how that feeling of gratefulness and everything comes along.
Yes,
So a lot depends on the parents because you have to lead by example, right?
yes, absolutely. Leading by example is what I have learned a lot from. And especially coming from South Asian community, a lot of time feelings are not expressed in our parents' generation, which is what we are learning as parents now or generation now. But leading by example goes a long way from generation to generation. A lot of things that I had talked about here, I just saw my parents doing it. Your brain is automatically wired for that act of kindness. That comes from your parents. I have heard both my mom and my dad telling people, I have helped you. Just return that thing to someone else. Just keep moving forward. You help someone else. It's like not just preaching, but actually showing people how to do it. That's something I would say is more impactful, and people remember who was there in your tough time compared to when you are just celebrating. So I just value those because every family goes through ups and downs, whether it's financially or emotionally, or whether you are transitioning or changing countries. We have done that as a family. And our parents have gone above and beyond in those situations. Who have helped, always remember who helped you in your lowest.
True, true. Yeah, two stories really come to my mind when we talk about this. both of them regarding our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's families, one of directly related to him. So I heard this story when I was very young that a lady who was not very affluent had a child who loved sweets and desserts so much. She couldn't stop her son from eating too much sweet and she couldn't afford it. So one day she took her to Prophet Muhammad and asked him, "Hey, sir, can you instruct my son not to crave so much sweets or desserts because I cannot afford it?" And Prophet Muhammad actually thought for a moment and asked her to come back at a later time. When they went back, and he was like, "Your mother doesn't have the money for buying you all this tasty food, so cut back on it a little bit, help your mother." And everybody asked him why you took the time. Prophet Muhammad was like, "Do you know what? Desserts are my weakness too. So I was consuming a lot. And when I was consuming a lot, I cannot ask a child not to do that. So what I did in this break was I went back, I stopped consuming sweets and desserts in abundance. So now I have the authority to come back and request him not to do that. When I am doing that, I cannot ask somebody else. So leading with example, right? Also, I heard this story in the mosque several times about his grandchildren, Hassan and Hussein. So one day they saw a very elderly person doing wudu in the wrong way. And they were like, how to tell him? Like, he will be offended if we are just children, if we tell him. And they approached him eventually and they were like, hey, sir, can you see if we are doing wudu properly? So they do it just to show him how to do it properly. And obviously, the elderly finally got around and, oh, he was like, yeah, I was doing it wrong. So thank you so much for saying that. And since we are talking about Prophet and everything, honestly, how much of this we really got from our religious belief?
I would say born and raised in a Muslim family. Almost all of it is from our religion, and it's coming from religion because of our teaching of humanity. Before anybody being superior, you have to be human and consider other person as human too. One was leading by example, but also if people do mistakes, not just mistakes, but a lot of time people lose temper. But they are all human because if feelings and acts are not shared but always held back, it comes as an outburst. But that outburst is also a human act. And that is something that can resonate with the choice of having sweets. That's one thing. The power of sacrificing things you love and the power of empathy, compassion that comes from religion. Always put yourself in other person's shoes before understanding what they are going through. These are all that comes from our religion. That's something I learned from my sister early in my age. I think I was like 10, 11, and something my sister always used to tell because I used to put my needs first, and she was like, no, always think to put yourself in another person's shoes. And that has gone so much beyond that I have become an empath person. That's how we connected. And a lot of it is, like you said, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave up sweets himself and understood how is it to be in place of that parent who cannot afford. And I can just give my life examples too because I came as a student to US and started as working as an intern and then full time. But both my internship time and my full time job, my brother visited me one time for work and one time for visit. I always used to say, I cannot afford that much. You can do that at your parents' home. And he loved ice cream. After every meal, he would have that. But I gave up on ice cream because I can only have that pleasure at the time of celebration or go for movies at the time of celebration. Something he was annoyed in the beginning, but he saw me doing it too. And what I see him doing now, mashallah, whenever situations get tough, he always makes sure that he helps other understand similar things, leading by example, and also being the empaths to keep yourself in other person's shoes and lead with that and approach people with that.
Very nicely put. Do you think we need to do a better job as a community? That could be the Muslim community, that could be South Asian community, that could be also the community of immigrants, the first generation immigrants or second generation immigrants who are trying to find their place in this country or in the Western world, in some other country. It could be Canada, some country in Europe or anything like that. We need to do, I'm not talking about getting in groups and getting stronger. I'm just talking about if the help is not available outside the community, we build an ecosystem that we kind of get the help from inside the community. Do you think we need to do a better job of doing that?
I would say we have already started to do a better job, but that is something that is available to few people with more connections. It's all about not who you are, but who you know. And I personally do feel that we have a lot to do to get better in that community feeling, as well as helping each other out, whether it is Muslim community, South Asian community, or first or second generation immigrant. Yes, because there is a lot happening around the world, not just professionally, but emotionally, with resources. And we have been seeing how market is going. It's so volatile. And it's amazing to see so many people who are having jobs, they started posting. This is the first time in almost more than a decade that I've been seeing a lot of people from our generation and even older than us who are sharing those resources to help. And I would say pandemic has actually helped a lot of people to understand each other's emotion because we are all in it together. It's not somebody's feeling that and somebody's not. As South Asian community, yes, we always have to do more and more. I would say there's never a lack of things that are not going to help. There is always new approach because with every new generation there is different approach. For you and me, we are those people and those in generation where there were in-person meetings more to make impactful connection. These days it's more virtual. In future generation it would be text, which is what we are all going, and that's how we connected. We never spoke and we were just on text. But as a community, there are groups and also communities to help South Asian and immigrants. It is not available for everyone. People who are educated in professional network, they are able to access it. But people who are refugees, for example, for them only non-profits are there as a biggest resource. I came across some professionals who are really, really talented, but they are refugees, just came to country. And for them, getting the help and support from non-profit is not that impactful because they have already an established professional. They need professional support. They establishing for settlement non-profits help, but as a community, there is a lot more work we can do. But there's always it becomes a word of mouth, and I'm sorry, I have to pause because with these things, a lot of time new ideas come up and pop up like how can we help our community? It's not just by like professional help for refugees, for example. And Bay Area is doing a really great job. There is a community where help all refugees, whether they are from Europe or from South Asia or Africa, to help them out professionally. That's something is needed in other states too. California and New York are places where this is also already available, but other states in US especially we do need because otherwise people form groups and nobody can get into that group. That's something is hurtful. Sometimes being a female in a brown community is even tougher. Surviving that either professionally or in any other aspect of life is tough.
True. Yeah, like very interesting to say that because that was one of my talking points. I want to touch that because I hope this episode is going to be heard or watched by a lot of non-Muslims in time to come. So I also want to leave a few messages for them because what the prejudice, the system we are talking about could be a little unusual for them. So I really want to put this into perspective because I have a lot of non-Muslim friends
Mhm.
who would think the prejudice inside the Muslim community would be that if, as a man, as a guy, when I was in trouble, I was seeking for help online, getting help from believing Muslim women is the last thing that's going to happen that day because they think we are not even allowed to talk to each other. Like there is so much wrong prejudice. Prejudices are always
Yes,
wrong. There is no good
yes,
prejudice, but I'm just saying it's so wrong because they see us as a very wrong representation of the whole community is
oh
made
yes,
so mainstream. So I want to break that. Even if like 100 people sees that, watches this episode or hears this episode in coming future, I want to break that prejudice today for good that you can look at us and you can see that nothing stopped us. There was no religious boundary. We were not breaking any rule or regulation. And if anybody tells you that helping somebody else is dependent on your gender and Muslim women are not empowered to help others, it's simply not the truth. Because we can assure you, this is very much possible and this happened. So yes, so the prejudice is also an obstacle because
mhm,
we always get stereotyped, right? We always get this belief of like we have an appearance, some beliefs, we hate most other people, things like
mhm,
that. And yeah, so much to fight. But I think my last message to my non-Muslim brothers and sisters would be is if you really explore, you'd be surprised to find that we are maybe I cannot take so much credit for myself. Maybe I'm very flawed, but at large, we are a very, very helpful and very friendly community, to be
oh
honest.
yes, oh yes. And if you allow me to add, I can add. I have a lot of things that I would love to share. One thing first is I come from India, from a central part of India, where Muslims are in minority. And I grew up along with non-Muslims. But same goes with my husband, who's from Hyderabad, who is at a place where Muslims are at majority, but he himself grew up with non-Muslims at a majority, and he has more friends who are non-Muslims. It always depends how you are raised. That is how your values are grown. And when I look at myself, my mom and my dad never discriminated between us. I have two elder sisters and one younger brother, and never discriminated between girl and a boy. We are more outspoken and outgoing, extrovert, and because we were always treated equally. But same goes with the guys. Like you said, there's a lot of prejudice over there between males and females in Muslims too. My husband grew up in all boys household, but if you are raised by a queen, you always know how to treat one as a princess. That's something that is said, and it all comes from my mother-in-law, how she raised all as equal. It does not comes with household activities but also professionally, and I'm so proud that I got associated to my husband Anwar Adil. And when he got a chance to have a startup, the first person he hired was a woman and non-Muslim. And when we moved from Bay Area to Dallas Fort Worth and we were looking for resources, his intention was always to approach a female professional. And because he had seen me going through that, whenever I try to help others, a lot of time I get a response, hey brother, or hey bro, this is this. And I was like, oh, by the way, it's sis over here or a sister over here. And when I was laid off, I got help from someone who's an American white person on LinkedIn who helped me out. And that chain created of me in the last 5 years, I helped out a lot of professionals professionally. Like in 2020, I helped more than 100 people on LinkedIn by sharing their LinkedIn profile. I did not look up at the race or ethnicity. All I saw was immigrants and brothers and sisters who are in similar boat as I was as a fresh graduate. And I'm proud to say there are mixed communities, including non-Muslims, whites, blacks, people of color, and also Muslim community. Last year helped people out with salary negotiation. I wanted to empower community by asking and standing up for themselves. asking for what they're worth of, which is what us and immigrants, we are like, we're happy to get a job and we will never ask for what can we get more out of it. And like you said, I also have a lot of non-Muslim friends, but I felt with experienced the prejudice myself. When I got laid off, I was always taken as, oh, in Muslims usually married women don't work, and I was not getting help. And I was like, no, it's not the case. And I have been working since my undergrad, and it was like in after 9 years I'm laid off, and in my university I'm working, in graduate school I'm working. I never had this thought in mind that, oh, I'll be happily married and stay at home. My mom always, she being educated and in child psychology, she always made sure that we are educated, and the importance of education and importance of being independent. Financially independent is a right, it's not a privilege. That's something I want to give back. That me being born and raised for some time outside India, we always had a community of immigrants and we celebrated all the festivals. Never had the discrimination of like one festival is above other, but we all came together, and that's something that stayed for me for life. And that's what I would like to give back to community. Like you mentioned, Muslims are always there to help each other, but also to other communities too.
Very, very true. 100% agree. Like that really hits home. My parents are really religious. My mother has passed, but my dad is there. But I can guarantee that in most of the family decisions, my father didn't have a say when my mother made a decision. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a Muslim family. Like
Yes.
that's not how we are looked at. I want to say my wife is as much, if I can put it that way, like entitled in being born in a loving family, having very, very loving parents, as entitled as me, if not more. And I can easily see now my daughter will be probably turn out to be spoiled more than her brother. So it's a very wrong idea that goes around about gender, about Muslims. Yeah,
Yes.
I understand there are extreme places where there are problems, but I think there are extremes in every group, every community, every country, every continent you go there, you'll find extremes. But to stereotype Muslims only with the few extremes is very wrong. I want to talk about a little bit about the challenges. So
Yes.
if I ask you, what is the number one challenge you face when trying to help people?
I would say number one challenge that I faced was the advice coming from a woman. That's something I faced. So there are two ways I would say, because if same thing I'm talking but a guy is talking, it is more impactful. Just like in any professional world too, or in a meeting like people say. I feel that I experienced that. The other one is like if I'm approaching Muslim community too, my mom and my sister, they are all hijabi, they take scarf. I experienced them facing discrimination or also prejudice. And it was a choice. It was never a forced thing for us to wear. And same thing I experienced when if I'm not a hijabi and I go to Muslim community, I'm not taken that religious. But when I go in non-Muslim community too, when it comes from so it's always surprising for people to notice a Muslim woman coming and helping, and who's not wearing a scarf, because that's like a prejudice or stereotypes that people have had, that they don't talk to males or they always take scarf. But then also understanding that it does not matter whether a woman or a man would go out and help people. It's your life experience who that make you do that. I would say that was the biggest challenge. Any point of time, I would say. And I believe that's what my husband also notices, which is why he's always a proponent of helping women. Because as a professional or even as an entrepreneur, women have to work way harder than men.
That's very, very interesting. And I didn't know that, to be honest, because in my position, I wouldn't ever think that would be the case. Because in my case, it's always, I live in a constant fear that when you try to help somebody and you could be busy or something, you miss a call, you're late in responding, and they tend to think that you were not really helping them, like you were pretending to help them, like convincing somebody. But
Yeah,
wow, yeah. So like being a Muslim woman could pose completely different set of difficulties. Yeah, that's very eye opening. I want to like we have reached almost the end of time limit because we I like to keep it like half an hour or something like that so that we don't test the patience of the listeners. So I
absolutely.
want to conclude this with two very straightforward questions. I think I know the answers to, but I want to test them with you. When you seek for help, you were not the helper, rather you were seeking help. And at first, it's very difficult. You feel vulnerable, you feel weak, you don't feel like doing it. But my experience is once you do that, you seek out for help. And this is just me trying to inspire other people to seek help. Just do it. Just go out of your shell and try to do it. It makes you stronger. Is that the same experience you had in your life?
Absolutely. Because taking the first step was the toughest, but I experienced that reaching out to a stranger with the thought that, oh, if they don't respond, that's okay. But a lot of time when you seek help, it is not just a one way route, but it's also two-way. Because the person who I got help from, he approached me that, hey, I'm doing this, I see you are laid off, I'm looking to help. That helped me understand paying it forward that if you are in a capacity to help others, offer it. Asking for help is the toughest thing. A lot of time people don't even know how to ask. And what we can do is create a safe space for them to come forward and then ask for help.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we talked a little bit about this at the beginning. I want to end with that because I think that is the strongest message we can try to deliver. I think it's essential for the growth of a person to become a complete human being that you help others. More importantly, you help strangers, if I may. Helping your close ones, loved ones is easy because there will always be that avenue that you are going to be loved back, you are going to be appreciated because they are in your life, they're important. But to be able to help strangers is probably the most beautiful thing, and it's almost like you are doing something without expecting anything, and that I think in a sense the secret formula for happiness, because when you can do more and more things without expectation, you get better at it, you are at peace, you're happier, right? So would you agree with unselfish helping with nothing, maybe not meeting that person ever again?
Absolutely. Yes, I would say definitely because welfare of the community is the aim of like getting that peace that you help someone who you never know or they may not even find that help anymore from anywhere else. I think I have come across a lot of people who have not met again, but I do remember them and they remember me. That's the beauty of it. The first guy I helped with career coaching and helped find the job, he helped me in moving my stuff when I didn't have the bandwidth to go. And it's like I never met him afterwards. And as I said, we all must explore the importance of helping others. The ultimate goal of doing this is for the welfare of the community and empowering others.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of good pointers. So we did good. I'm still a beginner in this. I hope I'm doing like reasonably well for being a beginner. I'm trying to bring my best step forward. So thank you so much for doing this with me, Hannah. And I hope I'm not going to tell you that. Inshallah, you'll be so successful. You'll be so happy. Inshallah, I pray for that. I'm pretty confident about that by just by knowing you. But I just hope that Allah blesses you even more. He brings more people to you, and you are able to help more and more people in coming days and in future. Like that makes you really happy in turn.
Jazakallah. Thank you so much for those thoughts and likewise. This I believe that even you would be doing the same thing as I am. I have
Inshallah.
known you for a short time, but I have heard you speaking in some events, and your voice is valuable for our community, and your thoughts are helpful for especially our male community, and your thoughts make an impact. That's something I have noticed. And inshallah, I pray that you and your family stay safe and healthy, and we all meet here hereafter, inshallah, in a good space. And
Thank you. Thank you
for
so
your
much.
podcast. Good luck
Thank
for
you
that.
so much. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.